Hey there, I'm Connor, and something really creepy happened to me, so I'm gonna tell you all about it. I have to warn you though, it's on the spooky side. So there's a chance it may freak you out so much you have to sleep with the lights on. There's also a chance you won't believe me, and that's up to you, but please remember that this is real for me. I believe in this stuff, and always have. In fact, I've been obsessed with the afterlife since I was little. I used to have open dreams, where strangers would come and try to connect with me. It was often ambiguous that I barely saw their faces. All I could remember after awakening was just a shadowy or indistinct shape with strange gestures, like a message. When I told my parents about them, my mom made it out that it was all nonsense, but my grandma assured me that there might be some spirits trying to tell me something. She told me not to worry, as most spirits had no intention of causing me harm. Sometimes these spirits would tell me things. Once, one appeared with a dog. Then a month later, my dad came home with a puppy. Then another time, I dreamt that Grandma had passed away. I didn't dare to tell anyone about that dream. I was so scared it would come true. Then, you guessed it, a few months later, she died. I came to dread those dreams, and worst of all, now I didn't have Grandma to confide in about them. To be fair, as I grew older, the dreams stopped, but my fascination with the afterlife didn't. I knew not to mess around with this kind of stuff, as doing so was bad news. Grandma had always told me that. But then I started dating Jennifer, and I really wanted to show her this side to the world. So I bought a Ouija board from Amazon. Well, it's a flat board with letters and numbers on it that's used as a gateway to the spirit world. I knew the rules. Never try this at home, as that was asking for trouble. The last thing I needed was to unleash a poltergeist or something worse in my house. Also, never ask the spirit to show themselves. So the plan was to sneak into the old house in my neighborhood that had just sold and was currently empty. I told Jennifer about my plan. She'd never done anything like this before, and although she was skeptical, she was also excited. That's what I love about her. She's so brave and adventurous. We met in the house's front yard at 3 a.m. as we planned, and both of us were seriously in the mood when we were trying to break into it. Yeah, I know, this sounds bad. But we didn't want to make a mess of the place or anything. We just wanted somewhere empty where we could test out the board. Firstly, we set the mood by lighting candles, incense, and burning sage. Before I started, I grabbed Jennifer's hand and said out loud, "Please don't show up, evil forces." Then I placed a silver coin on the board to deter bad spirits. Then we both placed our index fingers on the planchette, which is a movable pointer, and took a deep breath. I called out into the darkness, "Is anyone there? If spirits are living here, please talk to us." Nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. Jennifer laughed, and this annoyed me. I suppose she could tell from my face that I was mad. So she smiled at me and said, "I'm sorry, let's try again." Then placed her finger back. Then I said, "If there's anyone there, we would like to make contact." I was getting goosebumps right at that moment, and the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke, and the darkness around us seemed to move. Excited, I yelled out, "Is anyone there?" Then it got super crazy. Like it was this scene from a movie with dirt swirling around us. The planchette started moving slowly. Jennifer looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" "It's not me, I promise," I replied. I looked up at her, and the moment our eyes met, we knew the planchette was moving by itself. I continued asking, "How many spirits are there?" It took a minute of silence for the planchette to move to 1. It was becoming interesting. "Are you a good spirit?" It moved faster. YOUGUESS. Okay, I considered it a yes, and continued questioning it on some simpler things. "Can I know your name?" The answer was SAMEASHER. At this point, I could hear Jennifer freak out. It was kind of creepy because I didn't call her name even once. I said, "If you're really here, prove it." Jennifer jumped up. "Hey, we promised not to ever ask it to prove its appearance." Suddenly, a gust of wind came out of nowhere and blew out the Jennifer yelled at me to stop this now. Then she ran out of there. I quickly said to the spirit, "Nice to know you, but it's time for us to go. Goodbye." And at the same time swept the planchette over the goodbye symbol on the board to quit. Then I picked up the stuff and chased after Jennifer to check if she was okay. She was completely freaked out and told me she was never doing that again. The problem was, I couldn't stop thinking about the spirit. The new owners would soon move into the house, so I didn't have many opportunities left to go back there. So 1 week later, again at 3 a.m., I persuaded my daredevil friends Austin and Miguel to meet me there. I set the board up, and we began. I asked a few questions, and nothing happened at first. Then after a while, the board kept pointing out meaningless letters. I actually thought it was the others messing about. They soon got bored and all thought it was just my imagination all the time. Feeling annoyed, Austin left to go to the toilet, and Miguel and I carried on. I believed in my previous experience, so I persistently continued asking, "Do you know who's in the toilet now?" But still, the board only gave out random numbers. When Austin came back, Miguel gave Austin the numbers we'd recorded and said that this time it might not work and we should just go. The color drained from his face. It turns out the numbers were his own social security number. Austin began accusing this of being a setup. I told him it wasn't. I guess he was curious as he sat back down and joined in. And that's when Miguel asked a stupid question. "How much longer is this loser Connor kid alive?" I gave him a dirty look and said, "I told you not to joke around." Then the planchette started moving, stopping on the number 1, then 0. 10 years. I only have 10 years left. This was awful. I was too young to die in just 10 years' time. But no, the planchette continued to move. And to my horror, I watched it go between the letters D, A, Y, S. "Quit it, guys. This isn't funny," I shouted out to them. They stared back at me with a mixture of shock and fear. Okay, I was pretty sure they hadn't moved it. They urged me to end the game and go home, not forgetting to tell me to never play this game again. Easy for them to say. They're not the ones being told they will die in 10 days. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. It was awful. I was so stressed out it took me ages to fall asleep. Then when I eventually did, I had an open dream. I dreamt of a spirit girl who was walking to school with me. Then suddenly she pushed me into traffic and a car was coming. I woke up in hot sweats. 3 days later, I sneaked to the house again by myself and asked only one question. "How much longer do I live?" And she answered, 7DAYS. So it couldn't be a random answer. The spirit was counting down my remaining days on Earth. 3 days later, I still couldn't stop myself from going there and repeating the same question again, and the answer was 4. I couldn't just wait to die. I had to do something. So I told my parents about it, but they didn't believe me, and even scolded me for playing weird games so late at night. On the day my time was meant to be up, they saw the state I was in. I couldn't stop shaking and refused to get out of bed. There was no way I was going near a road today, so my mom rang the school and said I was sick. Then she stayed home from work and barely left my side. That day went so slowly, but nothing happened. It's a month later now and I'm still alive. I did end up grounded for 3 months for sneaking out at night and terrifying my parents. When my punishment's over, there's no way I'll be taking the Ouija board to any more empty houses. In fact, I've stuck it in the attic and that's where it's staying forever. So that's my story. You can decide for yourself if you're willing to try it or not. But my main advice to you is don't meddle with this stuff, as it's definitely not worth it.